Kieran is just so delightful as a human being. It just how can you be that positive and so adorable at the same time? It's ridiculous. He's like a bunny rabbit, you know. But this next guy, he's a little more jaded. He's got a badass look to him, shaved head, earrings. He's like a punker. You guys know him as, well, you mostly know him as Bleeding Fool, but the fact is he has a name. His name is Chris Brawley. And we've been talking for a while. I like Chris, man. I like the cut of his jib, man. Um, there he is. Let's bring him up here.
A
What
lot.
is up, Chris? How you doing today, man?
I'm good.
I like your setup, man.
Oh yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, this is
I
a little
thought
different than last time.
that's what the
Nice.
I've got a studio, but this is my home studio.
Your home studio. I like the colors. What's that poster on the behind you there on your back? So, there it is. That one.
That is Jack Kirby's Mad Bomb cover, I think, from
Because it
Captain
looks like
America.
Captain America to my eyes.
You see it any better? Yeah,
It is Captain America. It is.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Issue 193 that Jack Kirby was doing on his own. Love that run. I've got, I think, about 20 or 25 of those issues in my long boxes. It's just a powerful piece of artwork.
It is Kirby. As because especially when he was being pressed to finish a lot of work quickly, because he really was. Stanley worked him. He's a workhorse,
like a burrowed mule.
Yeah, his musculoskeletal stuff was, some of it was really questionable. Like,
Yeah.
That's not what a tricep looks like. Because that's one of the first things that would get fucked up in his artwork is his triceps. I'd look at that and go, that is the weird looking back of his arm. But it's because he was being pushed and forced to work quickly and not able to finish the artwork in the time that he would like to have done it in. But his artwork had such an impact on every one of us, including me as an artist.
Yeah.
I absolutely use Kirby's action lines and when I do space, because there's a lot of space in what I do, sci-fi and stuff.
Sure. The crackle.
I use the little dots, different sized dots for building my galaxies, and it's fun. I love doing that.
Kirby, I was first introduced to Kirby. My next door neighbor had a reader copy of, I think it was Fantastic Four 64, 65. I don't know. It was the cover was ripped off of it, and they were battling Blastar and the Sandman. And I just read that thing backwards, forwards. Even the Inhumans were in that one briefly. I mean, it was explosive, as Kirby often is. And, then I went through sort of this weird phase as I got older, because I got into Buscema and got into, over on the DC side, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, which was much more of your house style artists. Both of them very good, not to take anything away from them, but not quite as innovative as what Kirby was doing. And so I kind of, and like what you just described, there were periods where Kirby did some work that was a little bit rushed. And so I kind of lost my taste for Kirby, but as I've gotten older, at least after I got in my late 30s or whatever, I found a new appreciation for Kirby, and it's never went away.
Did you ever read his 2001: A Space Odyssey?
Oh yeah, I've got it. Yeah, I've got it, and I've got the first. I've got the whole Eternals run, and his first. Well, up on the wall, I've got a nice 9.4 slabbed Machine Man #1. So, yeah. Love the Kirby stuff, really do.
Oh, man.
And I used to be against slabs too, but now I'll only slab something if I own it unslabbed or a way that I can read it. So, I mean, that's not like I got a lot of slabs. I got maybe a little over a dozen, but they're important. Like I've got the Nom #1. I've got Florida Man #1, which is the book I did with Mike Barron. Actually got that to be a 9.8. Just books that mean something to me, or that maybe I owned when I was younger, or like Amazing Spider-Man 300. I actually picked that up at the PX on the spinner rack on a Navy base. I was a CB, and I'd gotten out of comics since I was a teenager, and so I'm in my mid-20s or whatever, and I saw that, and love him or hate him, McFarlane's art style, much like Kirby, it was really innovative. I mean, I know he swiped from other people and stuff like that, but it was just such a dynamic style that I opened it up and I'm like, oh my gosh, what the hell am I looking at here? And so I owned it, read the heck out of it, have it collected in all sorts of editions. But then I found I think that's a 8.6 or something. Yeah, 8.5. And I got it for a steal. So, couldn't pass it up. But I had to turn off my notifications on eBay because I started doing I was getting hit every day with possibilities of things that I might want, and I just had to stop. I don't have the space for that. It's crazy, or the budget for that matter.
Right. But Kirby's done so much great stuff. A lot of people don't know that he actually did a Star Wars cover.
Ooh, I think I remember that. I couldn't tell you what it was of.
Let me find it here. Hold on, I got it here. Here we go. Here it is. That's his Star Wars cover.
No way. Jeez. I forgot I was on the pop culture minefield for a second there.
Pop culture minefield.
That's clever, though.
Yeah. Clearly done in his style. But
sure.
No, he never did. Even though he was still working when that came out. The best artist that came out of the Star Wars books was Al Williamson and Carlos Garzón. Those two.
Al Williamson, absolutely. I think a lot of people overlook what's the guy's name that was over at DC, ended up being their editor-in-chief for a while.
I know Dan Didio.
No, not Dan. No, but he was an artist with him for a long time. He did The Flash for many years.
Oh shit, I can't think of it.
It's right after the first dozen issues. Gosh, I can't think of it either. It'll come to mind. I guess I could sit here and start binging and Googling it to figure it out.
Yeah, I know. I make that joke with Keith and I when we first started this show. It's like I would say, "Hey Keith, what do you think of this?" And he goes, "Well, I don't know." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know that information either. If only we had a device that we could just look up information."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I would tease us as being boomers.
Look at the camera.
But Chris, I also wanted to talk to you not just about like what you do over at Bleeding Fool.
Yeah.
A lot of us are big fans of your work.
Thanks. Wow.
I was really pleased when you and I followed each other and became friends with one another, because I really admire what you do over there. And,
oh wow! Thanks, I'm flattered.
Well, I think I told you before that Bleeding Cool, it started out okay, but then when politics started playing into things, all of a sudden they just went kind of goofy. And I had to unfriend not only the guy that created it, his dad too, because I was friends with his dad. And I'm like, yeah, you guys got to go bye-bye. Nice people, but
are they all the same political bent?
No, they don't get along. But yeah, they're both bent the same direction. But the father and son, from what I saw, they didn't get along at all. But politically, they were very aligned. And once the politics started getting kind of goofy in comics, especially like CBR was one of the first ones I noticed. Because I used to be on their bulletin board. Remember they had the little, I was on there, and then I started seeing some of the stuff, and I'm like, and I'm a pro. I was working for IDW at the time. I'm like,
you are a pro. Yeah.
I'm the fuck out of here, guys.
Baby. Absolutely, dude.
Well, and I want to bring that up while you're here, because you and John Trent have both committed to helping promote when I finally unleash Vindicated.
Here it comes.
And I am so stoked. Did you like what I showed you of that?
Absolutely. It's beautiful, man. I mean, I'm stoked about it.
It's veteran based, and you being a CB, I'm very passionate about it. And a lot of people forget that I am the official artist of Dale Dye. I do everything for Dale Dye. The guy behind Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers, and all that shit.
Yep.
I'm his artist.
Oh, you're
and I've been working 17 years, and it blew my mind when I realized that this year. I'm like, oh my God, I've been working for you guys for 17 years. How have you put up with me?
That's incredible.
And we're like family.
A lot of prayer.
And we just had Dale on last week on our show.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, Wednesday last week, dude. Go check it out.
I will.
Dale Dye was an incredible guest. I love that man so much. And I did say it during the show. I said, there are only 3 people who've ever made my ass clench when they call me son. And I said, you are one of them. Because when you say my name, that means everything's good. You're happy with my work. When I hear the word son, I know I've done something that needs to be corrected.
Especially if you're not related, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, it's like, and I told him the only other people like that were my godfather, Irish priest, not because of anything weird. It's just when he would call me Gary, everything was good, against son, or my XO in the Army would do the same thing. Lieutenant Bose would call me Kissel. And then all of a sudden, when I was in trouble, son, get over here. And I'm like, fuck.
It was never to reward you. No.
No, it was never, ever to reward. But what's funny is, I did get along with my XO. I don't know about you. You had an XO in the CBs, right?
We called him petty officer, chief petty officer.
Chief petty officer.
Yeah.
CPO.
Mm-hmm.
And with us, we refer to him as XOs, your executive officer. Lieutenant, mine was his first lieutenant, not second. And smart as a whip. First time I got yelled at was because I threatened somebody while running a track with my squad, and he was in another squad, and he talked shit to one of my guys, and so I cut him off, and then because I boxed, I know how to run backwards, and I spun around on him because he kept trying to go around me. I wouldn't let him get around me. Finally, I spun around on him, running backwards. I said, "Aren't you going to tell me to get out of the way, fat ass," or something like that, like you yelled at my buddy over there? He said, "Hey man, I don't want a problem." You got one. So I threatened him. I said, if I ever catch you talking to one of my guys like that again, I will beat the loving fucking shit out of you. We understand each other? Yeah. Now apologize to him. And he apologized to the guy, and then we continued. We never stopped running. This didn't stop. We just kept moving. And when I was done with the run, Lieutenant Bose was like, "Private Kissel, report." Because they heard what I said.
Sure.
Yelled at me in front of everybody, then took me privately and said, "By the way, I commend you for standing up for your soldiers like that." I said, "You yell at me in front of them, but then pull me aside to commend me." Fucking military.
Did they bump you up to an E2 or E3 after that?
I only got to E2.
Okay. Okay.
Because I left the military. I don't think I ever told you that.
No, I don't think you did.
My wife was in the Army. We served together. And she wanted to continue her career and not have a kid. I wanted the kid. So I stayed home and raised the kid.
Mr. Mom.
Well, yep. And I love doing it, man. I love raising kids. I raised my daughter by myself, man. Kids are awesome.
Yes, they are.
And, it's probably the only thing I did better than being a soldier, because I like being a soldier. I loved it. But raising a kid's amazing. And there's nothing exhilarating.
Well, when it turns out well. It's
when you've got a teenage female just throwing you nothing but fucking negative vibes and sass, and you restrain yourself from murdering them. I love that moment.
It's a win. Yeah.
It's a win.
Been there.
Well, how many kids you got?
Just one. I have a daughter. She's 22 now.
Get the fuck out of here.
Runs her own business. She's doing great.
My daughter is 23. She's going to be 24 this August. Nice. She's doing the same thing. She was a manager at 17 of
good for her.
One of the Phoenix, not Subway, what's the other? Jimmy John's. And David Spade was one of her regular customers.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I got pictures of them. It's adorable. And she left home at 17 ready. She told me she was ready. I went, okay, go do your thing. And she did, and she has not had to borrow from me until she moved back here, borrowed a little bit of money, and she immediately paid me back. Didn't ask her. She just did it. You got to be proud, Chris, when you raise your kid right.
Hope she's listening.
Oh, she doesn't listen to me. She loves me to death, but she won't watch this show. She's terrified of the things I might say about her.
I got you.
Well, since we're completely off the topic,
there's no such thing as off the topic on this show.
That's true. Were you talking about Carmine Infantino?
It was Carmine
Infantino. Yes.
Yeah.
Carmine Infantino. Yeah.
Now he's another one of those innovative artists, right? Because like a lot of people don't like how angular he is.
Well, he did Flash of Two Worlds, one of my favorite covers.
Yes. Well, but I think honestly that was before he really got as angular as he was in Star Wars. I mean, you recognize his work later on. That's just my opinion, of course. But yeah, Carmine Infantino, better known for his work over at DC, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all I knew him for. But back in the day, there was another artist that I really loved named Starinko.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
And
Yeah. He might have drawn something or two.
he
Have I ever
did.
told you the story about Steranko and the last book I did with Mike Barron, Private American? Mike?
Which, just by the way, it's been released and it looks fantastic.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I
Richard
get
Bonk
no
did an
credit
awesome
for
job.
it, and I don't want it because I wanted to work on that book. I was supposed to work on it, but the other project I'm working on demanded too much of me. But I got to help. I did the flats for the cover.
I had no idea for Gabe's cover or the
Yeah.
colors for the cover.
I
Yeah,
did the
great.
flats for that cover.
Well, it turned out beautiful. We really had, hey, Donnie Pearson, hey, we really had fun putting that book together, and it just kept growing, you know.
I couldn't believe it because I got to see some of the pages, and they're just so. And my buddy, I'm close friends with Richard Bonk. He is my
what a
bro,
guy.
man.
Total
I
stand-up
love Richard
guy.
Bonk. I've stayed at his house.
No kidding.
We've been out. In fact, I keep talking to him. I said, I got to get back down to Florida to see you guys. It's just, I love just disappearing off the map
Grid.
and
Yeah.
just go hang out with him. And we
Yeah.
did a con together. It was so much fun. Bonk is one of the, in my opinion, I'm not going to, I can't defend my statement about his artwork, but I can defend my statement about his inking. I consider him one of the best inkers working today.
He's incredible.
And his artwork is rudimentary, but I really do like it.
He's a hell of a draftsman. I will say something.
He is.
He is. He doesn't do really innovative type work, but he ought to be. He's
He
better
gets
than
it done.
95% of everybody currently at Marvel. There's no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
And even in Marvel's heyday, which I say is from the 70s through the early 90s,
Right.
He could have stood up there with the best of them. He's fast. He's clean. There's nothing inconsistent about his characters. He's dependable. And man, he is, like I said, he is so fast.
Very dependable. He replaced me on one comic, and because I told him I can't finish it.
Yeah.
And absolutely knocked it out of the park. But what's funny, the reason I didn't want to complete it, and I won't say who the person is,
Okay.
I didn't fucking like my boss.
Gotcha.
He was irritating me. And I am at an age where I don't give a fuck. If I don't like you, I don't want to work with you anymore, and I will walk away. But you owe me, fuck you.
I think you made a better name for yourself than Bonk has, but with the last name like Bonk, I mean, that's a sound effect. That he should be
he's
much
absolutely
more well known in the comic book industry. Yeah, as a matter of fact,
his name is an onomatopoeia.
he is. He's an incredible person. He's a decent human being,
a veteran too, by the
stand-up
way.
guy, a veteran. He takes good care of himself, takes good care of his family. He's a motorbike rider, like me and Mike Barron both
His
are.
Harley is great,
Beautiful. And now I'm going to tell you, here's a little something you may not know. Mike Barron has written his first ever Sherlock Holmes story.
I heard about this.
Richard's doing it, and I'm going to say the work that Richard's turning in for that book is better than anything he did on Private American. And
I take
no
credit
joke.
for a lot of this because I introduced them.
Is that right? Wow.
I do. Look, man, I have lost credit over doing so many things over the years. I remember I actually my ego got a little bruised on this one time.
Uh-oh.
It was over Blade Runner, because if a lot of people forget my involvement in the Blade Runner community, that I was the guy that kept Blade Runner alive. I created BladeZone.com, the #1 Blade Runner website in the world. And I kept it until 2000. Then I turned it over to my buddy, Gary Willoughby. Everybody works on BladeZone is named Gary. I shit you not.
You turned it over after that awesome video game came out.
In fact, I wrote the review on that for the website.
Yeah.
And they sent me a free copy of it. I love the game. I'm like, this is an engaging one. I did interviews with all the cast.
Nice.
And that's how I met Lisa Edelstein, because she was the voice of Dektora.
Yep.
And we became very friendly for quite a while, but when she became a star, I left her alone. I'm like, she doesn't need me bugging her anymore.
You did her a favor.
My God, because I grew up with Jewish siblings. So I would talk to her because she grew up Jewish. And so we had that commonality. We would talk about it. I said, yeah. I told her, I said, when I was little, I'd go to synagogue with my brother Michael. And there's a photo of me as a kid with a yarmulke on. And even though I was Catholic, Irish Catholic, that was the fun thing about our family. And then Lisa laughed when I told her that she was in a movie that felt like it was based on my brother Mike and I, because I was going to seminary to be a priest, and my brother Michael was studying to become a rabbi.
Wow.
And my mother was like, I would have a Catholic priest's son and a rabbi as kids. And I'm like, it'd be just like that movie that they did with Lisa.
I
And
hope you're still a believer. Are you still a believer,
I am an
Gary?
agnostic now.
Oh,
I
okay.
lost my faith a long
Oh, that's
time
too
ago,
bad. Yeah.
but I pray constantly. I'm
Okay.
always praying. But my response to it is, I hope you are there
Hmm.
because I'm going to look really stupid for having said this to you. I think God's
You're
got a
hedging
sense
your
of humor.
bets, bro. One day you'll give in. It's
Well,
okay.
I gave in to this
I
because
hear
I
you.
was very faithful, and then I lost my faith, and I've tried to get it back. This when my daughter got kidnapped for a brief period of time, and
Jiminy Cricket.
it fucked me up,
Good
and
gosh.
I
But she's
lost it.
alive?
Oh, it was a family kidnapping,
Okay.
but I
Well,
was
praise
terrified I
God.
wasn't going to get it back. I was
Oh my
afraid I wasn't going
gosh.
to
Of
get it back.
course.
And I think some of the deepest, darkest prayers I ever made were during that period. And I went into a place that nobody wants to go to. It was really dark. And I was terrified I was going to lose her.
Sure.
And I was afraid of doing anything because that was my biggest fear, that if I do anything that tells them what I'm actually doing,
Yeah.
they will disappear with her and
They'll
I'll never
exploit
see
that.
her again.
Yeah.
So I had to get a lawyer. I was getting everything planned out, working with the police department to get her back. And I had to do it in secret because they had people following me. It was a spy movie. And I already knew how to know if somebody's following you, if you suspect someone's following you, what you do. I learned that in the military. And because that's actually part of offensive driving and defensive driving are taught in the military. And you're taught how to look for people when you're moving around in a vehicle. And if
Situational awareness. Yeah.
situational awareness is so important.
You
And
ought to
I
do a
caught on.
comic of this. This sounds like you got a
I have
screenplay working
trouble
on that.
writing about it because it sends me, because that's where I got PTSD.
When
I
did
was
that happen?
diagnosed.
What year was that?
That was 01 and 02.
Okay.
And it started in November, right after Thanksgiving
Yeah.
of 01, and it went through till May of 02. And I was putting all my ducks in a row before I act. Nobody can play stupid like me. And I do a lot of RPG gaming, and I found that every time I am the bad guy in the game and nobody knows it, they got to figure out who the bad guy is.
Yeah.
Nobody ever figures out it's me
You're shady.
because I play stupid so well.
Can
And
I share something real quick about
yeah, man,
my own
do
faith?
it.
I was raised in the church, and then when I got into
What
high
faith
school,
denomination? I'm curious.
when I was raised, it was Church of Christ, but I'm a Baptist now. But I don't know. I'm a Pentabaptist. I mean, I don't know. I have a one-on-one with the Lord. I get with Him every morning and kind of talk about where I've come up short and kind of ask Him to give me some peace about things. And I read some scripture, I read a devotional, listen to some music, maybe do a little worship. I mean, it sounds like that's a lot, but maybe 10, 15 minutes. And sometimes I'm in a hurry, so I just phone it in, kind of like you hope,
Yeah.
you know how you hope you get somebody's
Yeah.
voicemail sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But I kind of drifted away in high school and college, and then I started hanging out with some people who are great people, great friends. One of them I see in the chat. I'm not going to out him, but we used to live on First Street together, and it was just a house of decadence. We were all just a bunch of young, straight white men with good looks and too much time on our hands. And as I got older, I got married. I didn't know what I was doing there. I was a really shitty husband, but I did have a daughter in the deal. And we split up. It was mostly my fault, not 100%, but mostly my fault. And then I realized at that point I need to get back in church for my daughter's sake, right? I want her to at least be introduced to faith. And we would regularly go, but I wasn't. I was a fan, but not a follower. You know what I mean? Like in the Super
Yeah.
Bowl, if it was the devil versus Jesus, I would be rooting for Jesus, and that's about the extent of my commitment to the man. But in 08, I had a very severe motorcycle accident, and my ex-wife brought my daughter, who was, I guess she was 7 or 8 years old at the time, to the hospital. And she and I weren't getting along. My ex-wife and I, she had already gotten remarried and moved on. But I realized that I had been living for myself because the motorcycle accident was caused by drugs, alcohol, foolishness. I had left a 20-something-year-old girl that I was on a date with at a gentleman's club so I could run down the road to get cigarettes out of my car because I wasn't going to pay the exorbitant price for smoke. I mean, just completely selfish and decadent the way I was living. And I flipped my motorcycle, and I punctured my lung. I crushed 8 or 9 ribs. I broke my collarbone. I was able to get the bike home, but I got in the hospital, and I was there for over a week. My ex-wife brought my daughter, and the look on my daughter's face of, here's my father broken. And I was fit and strong, and I would swing her around in the swimming pool and all kinds of stuff, So dad was like a superhero. And then she saw me completely broken, and I realized I almost killed myself acting foolishly and potentially destroyed this girl's life forever. And when they left, I just I just went to God and I said, why did you let me live? Why give me any further? I've done nothing for you. Right. And he kind of said, you will. To me, I felt that sense, and I just kind of wept and said, okay, I'm going to get straight. And I swore off the booze, the drugs, the women. And it took a while. I mean, it wasn't like the next day I was walking like a monk or anything like that. It really took about 6 months. But, it's a process. And my life's been blessed ever since. I mean, I don't want to – this is pop culture we're supposed to be talking about. I don't necessarily want to share all that. But
No, we talk about things like this too.
All right.
Because
that's
I like doing
testimony.
I came up from journalism, so I like doing actual interviews and talking about personal stuff. Like I actually worked as a journalist in magazines. Like people go, really? I'm like, yeah,
that's real journalism. That's not Bleeding Fool.
Yeah.
My Bleeding Fool story. The whole reason
that's what I wanted to talk about today is because you and I have never talked about this because I know the relationship of the name to Bleeding Cool.
Sure.
But we never talked about the inspiration, what drove you to want to do this, and what were your passions in the process of making this happen. That's what I wanted to get into today.
Well, I'll give you the story. You ask me anything you want. It was, I guess, almost 6 years ago. About this time, 6 years ago, 2017.
It's about the first time I saw it. Yep.
Mm-hmm. I was before we launched. Now we launched in October of 2017, but it was that summer. I started seeing a lot of, you mentioned CBR. They were one problem, but there were the moderators over at Bleeding Cool would bring down the band hammer on anybody that didn't go along with the narrative, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that, although occasionally you would have people who were a little bit like-minded with me. And when I say like-minded, I mean to say I'm very libertarian. I have a moral viewpoint of how we should function in the world. I vote Republican, although I voted for Ron Paul twice back in 08 and 12.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, I like Ron Paul. I still like him. I like his son too. But I don't, when I say Republican, I will never vote for a guy like Mitch McConnell. I will never vote, that's where I'm at.
Because I'm not a Republican either. I refuse to be a part of that. I became a Republican once in my life.
Yes.
While I was in Phoenix to vote out in the primaries.
Yeah,
John
it's
McCain.
strategic. It's strategic because
I did it to get rid of McCain.
Smart. Couldn't stand the man. I know that he did some stuff in the military. Doesn't mean I have to like him. Thanks for your service. Glad you're gone.
He was a crap soldier too.
He's terrible. He was terrible. And Lindsey Graham's even worse. He's taken over the warmonger role in the Republican Party.
Don't even get me started. Lindsey Graham.
But over at Bleeding Cool, the politics were on the opposite side, complete opposite, like extreme opposite. And I remember there was an article they had written. It might have been Joe Glass. I don't know who had written the article. This was before the guys from the Outhouse. What's the kid's name that used to write for the Outhouse and now writes?
Oh, I don't remember.
You know
I don't remember.
About.
Yeah, I do, but I can't think of his name.
Who cares? But somebody had written an article talking about praising diversity and inclusion and it said representation. And I'm not opposed to all that, but in the comment section, I said, isn't it amazing when you think about X-Men, Uncanny X-Men number 94, or I think it was just X-Men 94. I said, they didn't have to brag about how many ethnicities the team had. They didn't even
They
say,
were
"Hey,
just there.
they just did it." They told a fun story, and people got on board, right? Because they put
Well, it's
entertainment and story first.
you know as well as I do, Chris, in this, it's about the accolades.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, of
And that's
course. It's
unhealthy.
the virtue signal. It's
Yeah,
like when
virtue
it's like
signaling.
at church tithing and showing off how much money you're dropping in the plate. You want the praise of
Jesus
man.
talked about that
That's right.
too. I
Of
think it
course
was
he
in
did.
Matthew, said, the man who beats his breast in the street has gotten his reward. It's the man who prays in the closet that gets the ear of
Yeah, because
God.
that's just between you and God, right?
Yeah.
And God's the one that's going to bless you for that. But so I posted that comment, right? And usually in the bleeding cool, sorry, Rich, in the bleeding cool comments, I would get engagement, right? Mostly hatred, but occasionally there were some poor, unfortunate souls that had nowhere else to go that thought like me that would thumbs up and kind of encourage me. Well,
I know I'm going to tell you, I absolutely had to have been one of them
yeah, you
because
may have been. You may
I
have been.
right from the beginning, man, I was into it. I thought you were just straight up parody at first.
Yep.
And then I'm like, wait, no, he's really writing here.
Yeah. Well, we do satire also, particularly
It's
on April
satirical
Fools,
here and
All
there,
Fools Day. Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
usually tongue in cheek, snarky shit.
Some of the
which
best
I like.
stuff we've ever had, like Spike Valentine wrote a CBR article about why can't we have a white Black Panther? And it was basically doing the same thing they had done about having black characters. It just took it and flipped it on its head, which was beautiful. Boy, you got some great comments coming up here. I hate to not mention them.
Oh, we have a great audience, man.
You
Let me
do.
tell you.
You do. So anyhow, I got no engagement on that. I thought it was a very smart comment, if I do say so myself. Thanks, Penny. And I said, I thought, let me log out, because I've heard of this shadow banning, right? And that's exactly what it was. I was
Oh, we've
shadow
been
banned.
shadow
It was
banned on our
hidden.
channel.
No kidding. It
YouTube.
was then, you know what I mean? I didn't know that it was as prevalent back then, 6 years ago. And so they did. I started a new account. I didn't know how Discus worked. I didn't know that you could, once you ban somebody, it was that IP address. And at a certain point you go, look, I'm not going to fight this, because at the end of the day, if you don't want me in your house, I'm not going to be in your house. I don't care. But I realized at that moment, I said, I built some websites. I said, it's not that expensive to go buy a domain and hosting and just do this yourself. There's got to be a few other people out there that think like
Amen.
me. And I thought, at first we did go very satirical, and we were the anti-bleeding cool. And Rich has been called bleeding fool, bleeding stool, bleeding everything. And I said, well, just pick it up and run with it. Let's see what happens. And Rich and I have engaged on social media. He knows exactly who I am. He knows all about Bleeding Fool. But, I guess he's too cool for school. They've never done anything about us. They've never tried to stop us. And, maybe they consider it flattery. I don't know. But we're not as prolific as Bounding Into Comics. And hail John Trent for the
Love
enormous
John
amount
Trent.
of work he does.
And Matt McGloin, too, is out there
Yes.
with
over at Cosmic
News.
Book News. Yeah, those guys were my peers and predecessors, absolutely, in this. I'm just
'Cause,
carrying that same
just to
torch.
let you know, I did have a little bit of it was not an argument. It was just a quick tete-a-tete with Matt when I was bragging
Matt
about.
Surly.
I did my G.I. Joe cover.
Yeah.
And he took a shot at IDW, and I said, hey, look, man, I'm friends with these people.
Yeah.
There's still good people working there. I said, and I love a lot of the people I've gotten to work with at IDW, and I will never speak ill of any of them. I've taken shots at IDW, and I've taken shots at G.I. Joe, because they hired me at G.I. Joe in 2013. And it took them 7 years for me to do the cover, to finally give me the job they promised me, because the dude that was running it wouldn't hire or do. He was given marching orders by my buddy Andy, who went on to work for Hasbro.
Yeah.
And he said, Gary has been vetted by Hasbro for Transformers and G.I. Joe. I want him on the covers for G.I. Joe. I got to go to work for Hasbro. And that's what he told him. Would not do shit with me. Never
Well, who held it
responded.
up? Who held it up?
Him, the guy that was running G.I. Joe after Andy Schmidt left.
Yeah.
And when I got the cover, I immediately emailed Andy. I said, I finally got my G.I. Joe cover, dude.
Well, what happened with Matt? I mean, IDW is easy to
Well,
rag on.
Matt just took a shot at IDW as general. I said, I don't generalize my criticism. I criticize specific people when I do it.
I got
I
you.
don't take shots just at Marvel. I know who's the problem at Marvel. I actually, by the way, because I'm friends with Kelly Jones and those guys, we're still in a private group together of
Incredible
comic
artist,
pros,
by the way.
conservative comic pros, and we
Oh
hang out
wow,
together.
I need to be in
Not
that
allowed
group.
to say the name of it.
Okay.
It's Fight Club. I can't say the name of the fight. It's just like Fight Club.
Stop talking about it.
Yeah, and but Kelly came to us about 2.5 weeks before the firing at Marvel.
Yeah.
And one guy jumped ship, went to DC, and the other guy got fired. And we knew about it 2.5 weeks before it happened because he'd been at the lunch where it was discussed. And I loved being in that group. It's how I became friends with Chuck Dixon. Well, technically, I became friends with him because I worked with him on a comic,
Right.
one of my first comics at Team America. But it's where I became friends with Graham Nolan in that group. And I've always said this: if you become friends with Chuck, it's the law of inevitability. You're going to become friends with Graham Nolan because they're buddies.
Right.
It's just you can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
And but how many friends have you made in the industry?
Yeah. Well, I've made quite a few friends, but probably the one that I'm closest friends with is Mike. Mike reached out to me in 2019. He was a fan of Bleeding Fool also, and he shared just the cover art. Todd Mulrooney had done about 4 pages and cover that Brett R. Smith colored. Brett's an incredible colorist too. And I said, oh my gosh, I said, this looks fun, because after a while you get kind of tired of the capes and the tights and the superhero stuff. Not that I'm burned out on it, but
but he's also always very clever at his writing because he made the hero Hispanic.
He did. And I think that he did that too with, it's a Cuban American for Private American. It is a Hispanic single mom for Thin Blue Line. And Todd and Mike both kind of developed sort of the look for Gary Duba. Gary there was no discussion of his ethnicity in the book itself. So Mike was just sort of integral in getting sort of a Cuban look to that. Florida guy, right? Miami. But Mike is conservative, but that Florida man had a transgender Jamaican.
No, he's very clever in how he does things.
Oh yeah. Mike is so smart, but he's a curmudgeon because he's kind of pissed off that things have turned out the way they are in the industry. I mean, most of it's crap. Sturgeon's Law, most of it's crap. But he showed me this art, and I said, "Oh man, let me, do a story about this on Bleeding Fool." He goes, "Well, it's not a finished comic; it's just a novel." And he showed me that he'd written the novels, which are all out there available on Amazon from.
He and Chuck are both prolific authors.
Very, very. And Chuck even did a neat little Florida Man doodle that appears in the Florida Man graphic novel. But I said, Mike goes, "There's no book." I said, "Well, why don't you crowdfund it?" And Mike said, "How about you crowdfund it? And I'll cut you in." And, history was made, and we did a Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and then we did Thin Blue Line. And oh no.
Well, there's no question that I want to work with you, and I finally do launch this because I've been trying to find an artist who can imitate my style to finish the book because I want to focus on my writing. I'm losing my ability to draw because of my neck.
I know, you've told me that's so sad.
And I just want to find somebody that can draw somewhat. Because, by the way, one of the nicest things ever said about me was by Tom Waltz, senior writer at IDW. He referred to me as today's Al Williamson.
I was going to say your work is a lot like Al Williamson.
He was my hero, dude.
Well, that cover for Vindicated is just the inside cover that you shared with me a week or so ago.
I drew the brutality of him being hit in the face.
Yeah.
But I didn't want it. All the armor took the hit, so he's got 2 hits in his helmet, and he's been hit
half
so
the
many
helmet's
times.
blown off.
Yeah, the mask part of it is just separated. It's just fallen apart from being hit with so many bullets. And he says, "I may be surrounded."
I may be trapped. I may be trapped. That's what it says.
I may be trapped.
It's
my nod to, of course, Big Trouble in Little China's Kurt Russell character of Jack. I forget his last name. Burton. Jack Burton.
Bert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what all
He
Jack,
opens
Jack
that
Burton
door
says?
and he sees all the bad guys and he shuts the door and he goes, "We may be trapped."
We may be trapped,
I have a lot of Kurt Russell nods in there. In Vindicated alone, there's a nod when he gets hit in the chest and he's laying there, and instead of "son of a bitch must pay," I change it to "motherfucker must pay." It's straight. It's a Kurt Russell line, and I just love shit like that. They're my nods to the movies I grew up on and the actors I like. I admired Kurt Russell because he was a badass, served National Guard. I know some people frown on that. Oh, that's not real service. Like, I served in the National Guard and the reserves, and I was activated. What are you talking about? You know, it's still Army. In fact, if you look at our uniform, my first name is U.S. Army and my second name is Cassell. Because that's what's on your name tags. U.S. Army doesn't say National Guard. It says Army.
Nice.
You're a property of the Department of Defense. And I tell my cop buddies that when they get pissy with me, because I'll criticize them every once in a while. I love cops, by the way. Big supporter of our men and women in blue. But I get annoyed with them when they want to militarize it. And I'm like, look, man, you know what happens? You have a bad day, you can quit.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
In the U.S. Army, you suck it up and you drive on because you are property of the Department of Defense. You don't get to have a bad day and walk away. And you have a bad day out in the field, you or somebody else gets killed. It's just that's what's going to happen. And that was my biggest fear as a combat medic, is like causing somebody else to get hurt. I was terrified of, absolutely gut-wrenchingly terrified of fucking up. And then I find out other guys felt the same way. And I'm like, oh, we all feel the same way. Look at that.
How many pages are left on Vindicator?
I have 3 chapters done, and I just wrote the finale, the final chapter, and then I've gone back and I'm writing chapter 2 differently because I felt like something was missing. The way it was written before didn't work structurally for me. Okay. And so I've just gone back to the drawing board, and I like my humor. My humor is in there everywhere. It's dark humor sometimes, but like I took from another script I wrote called The Comedian, and I put the ending of that into the ending of this one, because you're allowed to steal from yourself. So I stole from myself. And there's this great ending that I had for this story about a guy who's a stand-up comic that gets mistaken for another person. It's North by Northwest is my nod to North by Northwest. And fuck, man. In the end, he has to face this bad guy and he's dying, you know? And so I put that into the thing where John is sitting there talking to this guy, asking questions. And you're like, why is he asking all these questions? And you finally realize it in the last 2 frames of the comic why he asked these questions.
Right.
And it led up to this joke. And it's a classic joke of the bricklayer. And he tells the bricklayer joke. And the joke of the bricklayer joke is that it doesn't go anywhere. You're supposed to forget the punchline. Or that's what you say. There is no punchline.
Right.
And then you act like you're going into another joke. And you start telling that joke. And when you get to the punchline of that joke and you ask the person the question, and they guess that this current thing that's in this recent joke, instead the punchline is what should have happened in the first joke. And it's one of my favorite structured jokes of all time. Very clever.
How much of it is drawn?
None of it is drawn. That's why these 2 chapters, I need an artist, because I'm having to, like, the numbness in this hand is ridiculous, and my hand shakes sometimes.
What a shame.
And I work digitally because if I try to draw naturally, the lines start looking jagged when I'm drawing.
Dang.
I might have somebody then for you.
Oh, I'm talking about artwork, not sex.
Yeah, potato.
By the way, Mike, Comic Relief Crusader is Mike. This is Chris Browley.
Nice to
This
meet
is
you,
our good friend
you too,
Mike.
man.
He's one of our announcers and good friend. He has his own channel. Oh, Jesus, you turned the camera on. I was hoping you wouldn't. You got the crazy hair today, man. You look like a crazy guy living in his garage.
I almost
Get back on camera. I swear to
Calm
God. Look
down,
at
Mike. Come
Look,
on
All
back.
right.
get on, Gary. Look
There
at
we
that.
go.
Look at that fucking hair. I love you, Mike.
I'm trying to pull a duck brown look, but I'm failing miserably. So
Oh, I know.
Need a little
It's the
more
whole
hair.
Canadian thing.
A little
I
longer
know it.
hair, maybe.
You're a
Yeah.
better
Exactly
American
right.
than you are Canadian.
yeah, there
Hey,
we go.
Gary, have you seen the project that Mike is doing with Pat Broderick that's coming out this weekend?
Wait, what is it? Because I'm sure I
Bronze
have.
Star.
No, I have not seen that.
If you go to Bronze Star Comic, you can sign up for it on Kickstarter. It launches tomorrow, but we're also doing a simultaneous campaign over on Fund My Comic. Have you heard of Fund My Comic?
No, I have
Yes.
not. If they've finally created one just for comics.
They've created one
Yes.
just for comics, and you won't get canceled over there for
Mm.
politics or anything like that. One of the things that happened with us on Private American was the Daily Cause did a hit piece on Mike calling.
Oh, I remember that shit, dude. And you and
Yeah.
you came to me,
Yep,
and I went out there and I pushed the shit out of it.
that's
Like,
right. Well,
fuck these guys.
Kickstarter booted us, and then Crowdfunder booted us. Crowdfunder with
Wow.
a DR. But go to
And that
Fund.
should be criminal. That should be considered
Agreed.
a criminal act.
Well, we engaged an attorney, and it's slow going to do anything about it. Honestly, it sucks.
I'm
But
sorry,
go
man.
to fundmycomic.com. You can
Yeah,
sign
they're
up
on
for it.
Twitter as well.
Yes, they are at fundmycomic. I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, are you guys creating multiple accounts at all the different ones?
I just got a second account at Kickstarter just in case, and at Indiegogo. There's the Private American if you want to do a second chance, but search for Bronze Star when you get a second.
All right, let me do that.
Yeah,
Bronze.
do that. I'd like you to see this. This is the first time that if you know Pat Broderick,
Yeah.
there it is. If you know Pat Broderick, he did Alpha Flight after John Byrne stopped doing the art. He did Micronauts. He did a lot of stuff at DC, including the Justice League Society or Justice Society,
Justice
and,
Society, yeah.
Green Lantern, rather.
Oh, we got a video too.
Oh yeah,
I-
yeah.
I got to
it's,
get Mike on here so he can talk about this shit.
absolutely. I know he would love to. It's launching tomorrow.
Well, we love Mike. We've had him on a lot. And by the
Yeah.
way, when he was on Fat Stevens' other show that he does, Lorena,
Yeah.
he's
Korea.
on there. What
yeah.
nobody knew was that he and I were privately chatting with each other during the whole show.
Whole
And I
time.
kept telling him to say things. I should say this about Chuck Dixon. It'll be funny because I'm a dick.
Did he do it?
Yeah, he did.
Oh,
live on
sure.
the show.
Yeah, Mike's game.
Mike's a smart ass dude. I love that about him.
Well, what I was going to say about this situation with Pat is he's old and he's not super healthy. Some say we should boycott Kickstarter, and others like EBS. If we voluntarily leave, they win. I'll tell you what I think. I think that we're giving Kickstarter another shot, but we're not going to rely solely on them. And that's why we've started this over at Fund My Comic. Pat Broderick is he's a classic liberal. A lot of his people are over on Kickstarter, and he wanted to be on Kickstarter, so we're going to be on Kickstarter. But if they pull some shenanigans on us again, we're never going to use them again.
Look,
they've burned us
you and
before.
I both know Blue Dog Democrats are some of the best Americans you'll ever meet.
Yeah, he's a classic liberal. I agree with most of the. We
Blue
are both
Dog
down with
Democrats
the
are
free speech,
backbone of this country.
civil rights. Absolutely.
That's
But-
what Keith, my partner on the show, is. I wish he was here today.
Yeah.
He lost his mother. Say some prayers for him.
Oh wow.
He lost his
I'm sorry to
mother
hear
on
that.
Wednesday. It was
Oh,
rough.
gosh.
Oh man.
It was like they were expecting it to last longer. In fact, his brother was talking to me on Monday during Memorial Day. Both of them were here at the house. We were doing a cookout. And there was this hope that she was. And by that night, Keith got a hold of me at like 1 o'clock in the morning to say, it's down to hours now. This is just a nightmare. And
Dang.
it did. She went quickly on Wednesday. It broke Keith's heart because he hadn't slept. And he finally was told, go home, take a nap. It happened while he was taking his nap.
Good grief.
So he wasn't even there. It
Jeez.
broke his heart. And I just tell everybody, please, if you know Keith, post a good comment to him. He needs the positive information in his life. Be positive, proactive with Keith, and remind him how much he's needed and loved in this community, because he really is my personal, and John here knows a lot, by the way, a lot of stuff. Keith is my fact guy when it comes to comics, and we're going to do a different episode today.
Hmm.
And when his mother died, that's why I got a hold of you, is because his mom died, and I knew he wouldn't be able to do the show.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, this is a good time to get you back on here.
Yeah. Well, that's sad. I mean,
I've
that's
been wanting to get you on here for a while.
Thanks, Gary.
Well, I
You know,
appreciate you being here.
there's some other news. I don't know if you guys heard. You know, Peter Samedi, who runs Alterna Comics, he kept seeing all these different crowd funds were offering digital comics, and even after the campaigns were over, like somebody would run a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo or crowdfunder or Fund My Comic, whatever, and then you didn't know where to get that comic. So he has started something called comicbooknewsstand.com, NEWSSTAND.com. And he's gathering it's basically just one website that has how you can get these digital comics. So wherever you see, what's a for instance out there? Well, I mean, I know Mike Barron's is there, but they've got over 80 titles, like Josh Howard's books are over there. Anybody who has got an
Is this it?
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
So scroll down a little bit and you'll see that right now you can just enter your information here, upload your cover image. If you've got a digital comic out there, you can do it. But scroll down and look at all these titles they've got. And it's some that have been, the campaigns have been closed for a while, but you can still access and get the comics themselves. And I think it's a good thing. I'm proud of Peter. He's not making any money off this. It's totally free. So if you have done a crowdfund campaign or you're selling your books on Amazon digitally or Gumroad, if that's still a thing, I don't know, Patreon, you name it.
Oh, it's sad. I was hoping Iron Sky might be in there. It's not.
No.
Do you ever see my Iron Sky comic?
No, you have to put it on there. If it's available digitally.
Oh,
yeah. He's not going out and collecting this information. But he's hoping to have over 100 listings. I think he's up to 80 something right now. He just launched it yesterday.
There we go. This is my book. You can still get it over on Amazon.
You should add it. You should add it to this.
This is a buddy of mine that did the covers because I like the old Gold Key comics where you had a different cover artist.
Yeah.
And then I would do the interior art.
Is it a painted cover?
Yeah, it's a painted cover of a baby pissing in a diaper made out of a swastika flag.
No way. I need a T-shirt of this. Just kidding.
And it's beautiful artwork. I loved his work. I really did. I'm listed as the co-author with Miko, and Amin Amat worked on it with me. He did one chapter. It was a fun book. I wonder if we got any good reviews. I'm always afraid to read reviews.
Show it.
1 star.
What?
Oh, you're not seeing it. Let me share it.
No,
oh my God.
Come on.
Oh God. I thought I was sharing the screen, but I'm not. Let me share the screen. Boom. Here we go. 1 star.
Nazis assassinating each other at close range. Lots of bloodshed. Not much story. Well,
It's
you
a
got
pulp
some 4 and
comic.
5 stars in there.
Now there's a nice one. Oh, I feel good about this shit. People
Let me
like
see
the
that
artwork.
cover.
There was a 5-star.
This
there
is
were.
now. I'm going to tell you a little story about this guy with the cover
Ooh,
here.
yeah. I've seen that.
Douglas is my buddy. We are still friends to this day. You can see some of the artwork here.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a funny story in here, right here, the introduction, where Miko tells how I got involved in the comic. I basically invited myself to work on it. I said, yeah, you need to hire me. I'm the guy. And just all of a sudden I was working on the comic book.
That sounds so out of character.
Yeah, I know, right? Here's some of my artwork. And I
That's
did all the
nice.
lettering, by the way.
You did the lettering too. Wow.
Yep.
Really?
I got featured in, what is that big comic book lettering font site? This is the what's his name? Dave Gibbons font.
Yeah.
I paid like good money for
really?
the font,
I did
all the
too,
versions of it. And
Put it on sale.
I did the artwork and I did the coloring on this.
Nice.
I had a lot of fun doing this book. They liked me because, once again, when it came to the actors and stuff, I got the likenesses. And I was very good at what I did. and they did a nice little breakdown of the film in it. There's a lot of work. There's a pinup I did right there.
Is that the one where Sarah Palin was the president
Yes,
and the
Yeah.
Germans had a moon base?
yes.
Awesome.
Yeah,
This
I
shit
like
was
that movie.
fun. I'm still friends with all these guys. I refuse to come back for the second book because, and I'm not slagging these guys. I am not slagging them, but
That's IDW, right?
we didn't get IDW published it. They did not pay for it.
Okay.
The
Okay.
studio paid for it. They did
Okay.
a crowdfunding. We did not. I did not get paid the second half for the book. So I made it clear
Mhm.
that if I'm going to do the second book, which I had first, what do you call it? First
Right of
right
first refusal.
to refusal. And
Mm.
I said, you will pay me up front for
Mm.
all of the work.
Yeah.
None of this half up front, half later, because I'm not like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that shit again. But I love these guys. They're great guys. It wasn't like they intentionally fucked me over. That's not what happened. It's just there was no money.
They just unintentionally did.
All the money went into the film. And they thought that
Yeah.
we would make more money off the comic book. And I'm like, never, ever anticipate that. No.
Anybody that says we're going to make all our money off that comic book is
Well, I told them, I said, the
naive.
reason why you're doing the only thing cheaper than word of mouth to promote your movie is make a comic book.
Yeah.
And I've done it with a lot
Yeah.
of projects. I worked on the A-Team. One of the first comics I worked on for IDW was A-Team. And do you know the story about IDW? Because I
Yeah.
was not the artist. Oh, I know. We got to end in a minute. I'm watching
Yeah.
the clock.
Okay.
But I got to tell you the truth. Do you guys know how to end the show for them and not us? Because I feel like continuing talking to Chris here. I'm having fun.
Yeah, we can
And-
always stop. You can always stop the stream, and we're still on this.
Yeah, we're gonna stop the stream for KGRA, but I don't know how to do it. Do you guys know how to do it? I've got no response yet.
No.
No, Martine, do you know how to do it?
Man,
Nope.
I should have
What a
sent
shame!
it. I should have
Well,
sent
we're
it to the
hooped.
Marx Brothers.
What a shame! What a shame! That's all good.
Well, you and I could continue
Should've
talking
sent
after
it to
the show.
Marx Brothers.
Sure.
Yeah, I should have sent it to the Marx Brothers. One of the greatest lines in Indiana Jones history. You didn't, did you? You did.
You
I should have
did.
the Marx Brothers.
Are you gonna go to the theater and see that? The new
No.
one? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I look, and it's not just because I'm conservative. It's because I love Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Right.
It has. I tell
I'm
people it has nothing to
torn.
do with my
I'm
politics.
torn
If
about whether or not
you
I
read
want
one
to.
of my comic books, you'll never know my personal politics. You shouldn't know somebody's politics from how they write. If you do, you're a terrible writer.
Sure.
Yep.
You
I
know?
still regret seeing Crystal Skull. I wish I hadn't
No.
seen it. I'd rather have stopped at the John Byrne comics and that'd be it.
Only thing good about that was John Williams soundtrack and Drew Struzan's
Well-
post.
Go ahead, Mike.
We stopped for you, Michael. Go
Yeah.
ahead. But nothing.
No, they're saying that this movie's going to make. They're saying that this is going to make Crystal Skull look good.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's gonna.
I'm
take-
predicting it does 600 million and stops right there.
There's
Yeah,
there's
pretty
only
much.
there's only 3 Indiana Jones
Yeah.
movies.
Correct.
Well, Chris, I want to thank you for being here, man. I know
Exactly.
that everybody in the audience really enjoyed it. And
Oh, I
speaking
hope
of the
so.
audience, I want to thank our KGRA audience for always sticking in with us. We appreciate it. Don't forget that this show is brought to you by Fuel Up. Fuel Up Wake, Play, and Rest. I'm a absolute user of this stuff. It's amazing. It's changed my life. I don't take old man naps in the afternoon anymore. I feel energized. Now, of course, I got to tell you, Chris, the joke I said to the owners of the company, I said this to them right to their face. I said, yeah, I was apparently using it for 2 weeks before somebody says, you don't snort it. You put it in water.
Oof.
They laughed. They thought it was funny. I'm a comedian. Fuck.
You sure are.
Again,
I want to
potato,
thank
potato.
Penny, Anima Confusa, love of my life, Slasher Fred, Socks Bulletins, Rag and Ruse, Pat S, Hex Allen Comics, Apollome's Minion, Joe's Atmosphere, Fat Steven Seagal, Scott Lewis, Real Wade Nation Gaming, Donnie Pearson, E. Clay Thomason, Zax, a.k.a. Kyle, Courtney's Fellowship of Oddballs, The Captain's Arse. That's a name I haven't seen before. I like that one.
I like the Captain's Arse. I like it a lot. You should follow him.
Okay, yeah, follow us too, Captain's Arse. We'll follow you back. By you following us, I get the notification and lets me follow you. Bleeding.
Donnie Pearson, a very prolific fan.
Oh, Donnie's a regular. I love that guy.
Yeah.
I love him. Let's see. Bleeding Fool, I'm assuming that's your buddy. Speed Griffin.
One of them.
And Shinatsky. And of course, none other than the one, the only Boosh McFadden.
Boosh McFadden.
Monkey wasn't here. I'm really sad. I love Monkey Jeebus. But anyway, guys, I want to thank you all for being here. And with that, or as Andre would say, and with that.
Those sons of bitches.
Ma, I'm doing a show.